So it being a little after 4 o'clock on January 5th, I'd like to call this meeting of the Gardner Elementary School Finance Subcommittee to order. Subject to the law passed and signed by the governor on June 16th, 2021, this meeting of the City of Gardner School Building Subcommittee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner by watching on the City of Gardner YouTube page. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post to the city's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So now let's do a roll call attendance. Dr. Hammond, would you mind calling the roll?
Mark Pellegrino.
Present.
Wayne Anderson. No. Robert Hankinson.
Present.
Jennifer Plavin.
Present.
Bob Schwartz. No. Mark Hawk.
Present.
Yeah, we also, I see, we have Tim Alex is on the call, Brenda Smith, Matt Dunn, Josh Cormier, Steve Hemmon. Am I missing anybody else? Alan Lucas. I think I've got everybody that's on the call.
Excellent. So can we go to the first order of business, which is to approve the minutes from December 1st, 2021? Do I hear a motion
Move
to approve?
accept.
Thank you, Ms. Hankinson.
Second.
Thank you, Attorney Plavin. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion on the motion, can we put the matter to a roll call vote? Dr. Hammond?
Mark Pellegrino,
Yes.
Robert Hankinson,
Yes.
Jennifer Plavin,
Yes.
Mark Hawk.
Yes.
Yes, did I miss anybody on voting members? I don't believe so. Okay, we have a vote.
Excellent. Can we move on to the approval of bills and orders?
We have no bills and orders for this meeting.
Okay. We don't have to pay anything. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. No bills and orders. Moving on to the report from the OPM.
Okay, I'm going to try and share my screen.
Is Christian coming on the meeting?
He had intended to. I know we talked about it earlier today that he was going to be on. So are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this again is our budget, and column A here is our budget from back in August of 2019. B is invoices to date. Granted, there is a little bit of a lag based on when our invoices get approved by, reviewed by me and sent in, and then when they get into ProPay, but that's invoices that were on our system as of January 1. Contracts that have been encumbered to date, invoices this period, E is encumbered this period. But really what this sheet is all about, again, is the MSBA eligible project costs of what we're anticipating will be deemed eligible, and then what the calculated reimbursement would be. So just scrolling down to the bottom, our budget was $89.5 million. Of that, we've been invoiced 36.7 million. And of the 36.7, we anticipate that 23.4 would be eligible for reimbursement. And based on the city's reimbursement rate, we would anticipate reimbursement of 18.7. So 18.7 out of the 36, you're at about that 50% mark. So it's where we would anticipate to be. Again, the MSBA will reimburse as we go through the process up to 95% of the total grant. So at the end, there may be some monies that the MSBA holds until the final audit at the end of the project. Overall, we're doing well financially. Our contingency, we have a burn rate based on the meeting minutes from last month they're all listed there, the different change orders. And so we've been tracking within the same range each month. Some months a little bit higher, some a little bit lower, but we do have a number of items to go through today. And I'll have maybe Christian walk us through those in a little bit. But we did want to talk about overall project, what's going on in the site, and just our need to try and make things as efficient as possible as far as getting approval and keeping things moving on site based on issues in the field, weather, supply chain issues. There's just a lot of issues that we're dealing with, and we're trying to keep things moving forward. So we have the best shot of finishing in plenty of time to get the kids in. And one of the items that's come up is we do have a lot of things that come up on a regular basis, and most of them are pretty minor. And we've talked about options for getting approval either from this group or directly from the mayor if needed, where we couldn't wait for this meeting. But we'd like to broach the possibility of getting approval or having the ability to approve things on the fly, within a certain dollar value that we could give the contractor authorization to move forward. Certainly we would forward anytime that we took that step on to through Steve Hammond and then to the group, and obviously keep you informed on a regular basis. But it just helps that as the contractor's on site in the middle of something, if they have approval, they're not pulling off and then remobilizing or having to go and switch gears and work on something else. And it just can make for, improved efficiencies. So we'd like approval to kind of add that to our arsenal of approval methods.
Hey, Tim, quick question for you. Under the contingencies, those two numbers, is that what's available or what we've spent?
Well, that was what was originally available. Let me see if I can pull up. So this box down here on the bottom was our total contingencies, and that's what we've spent to date. So, just in construction, we had 5.3, we've spent 1.3. We have pending of all sorts of different items, and some of them, about 150 of them we want to talk about tonight, which would leave another 100 or 400,025 in our log here. And we track kind of, even if we don't have a proposed change order from the contractor, we might put a placeholder of $25,000 or 30,000 or 10,000, whatever we think it might be. And that's what makes up that amount that's over and above the items we're going to talk specifically about tonight. Just while we have it open, there was a question about, supporting the folding partitions in the media center, and it's a structural steel item, or we put a big placeholder in there as kind of a conservative approach to hopefully cover that. This 25,000 was modifications needed at a number of different classrooms to accommodate the diffusers and some baseboard piping. These are some of the larger items. Most of the time they're in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. Here's one 15,000. This is metal panel trim at the diagonal diffusers. Here's a $5,000 one for added caulking at the diffusers where they're set into the masonry. So as we've talked about in the past, anything that we think might have a cost, we're adding a placeholder for it. So of this 575, again, we want to talk at about 150,000 of these tonight. And that would leave about 400,000. That's not to say that we would actually encumber all that 400,000, but that's just to kind of give you a conservative understanding of where we stand financially on the project, just the financial health of our contingency. So again, we've spent 1.3. We're about 50% of the way through construction, so we're in very good shape. We did talk about our overall budget and having some overages where we're planning on, we're looking to spend maybe a little bit more than what we originally had budgeted on furniture. But the rest of the line items are really pretty much on budget. Where they're off a little bit, we may move some money around once they kind of shake out a little bit. Somewhere we have some surpluses, but overall we're doing very good. And long-winded answer to your original question, yeah, those were the originals. This was our bid savings, which we've rolled into the regular contingency, and that's why it's showing the 5.3.
And for the matter you just spoke of, do you have a number in mind, like $10,000? And who would be doing the approval? Would it be you, Christian, both, or?
Yeah, I think we would have a consensus from our side, from the design side, and from the OPM side. You know, whether it's, you know, Matt's on site every day in the field, and as they're coming across, you know, maybe some unsuitable soil that is a minimal amount, or some kind of condition where the mason has his scaffolding set up and he just needs to change a detail or make some minor changes. He can really see what's going on and give us either photos or video or just a description of it. But yeah, I think in the neighborhood of about $10,000 would be good. If it's over that, you know, then it's probably a big enough issue that we could either go to the mayor for immediate approval if need be, or at least have time to bring it to this group or the full committee on those meeting nights.
All right. One last question. Would there be an aggregate amount you think that we should put it on, or is that not necessary? No?
Well, I don't think we would never go more than 2 months or 2 weeks before we present to either this group or the full committee of what maybe took place that we gave authorization for. So I don't anticipate it getting very high, but the $10,000 was per occurrence, if you will, or per issue.
Yep.
So there might be multiple issues in a couple-week period.
In the interest of keeping July 17th, I'll make a motion to have you guys make the approval up to $10,000 before having to come to the committee. As long as the committee is still notified, that's still going to happen, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a great motion then. So I move it.
Excuse me. No, just to clarify, notified, but not immediately.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that later that day, the next day, or whatever, but you'll get some kind of information back up and so
Yeah.
forth.
Even if it's at the next meeting, as long as there's a notification.
Yeah, that's certainly no problem.
What would happen, Mark, is they'd send to me what they want to do with it, and then I'd forward that to the subcommittee or the next committee meeting. And then at the end result, will have to go to the committee to be formally adopted because it changes the budget. So again, the main point is that the contractor knows they're going to get their money. They do the job. It's not hanging out there.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Attorney Flavin. Any discussion on the motion?
I do one question, but that was 10,000 per occurrence or 10,000 for the period of time? What did you want, Mark?
Occurrence.
Okay.
Yeah. Excellent. So hearing no discussion on the motion and no further discussion, let's go. I'll have a roll call vote. Dr. Hammond?
Mark Pellegrino,
Yes.
Bob Hankinson,
Yes.
Jennifer Flavin,
Yes.
Mark Hawk.
Yes.
Did I miss anybody? No.
Josh Cormier is also on, but
Josh, yeah, he's on, but for some
I think he's typing.
Yeah, the answer is, yeah, he's not a member of this, voting member of this.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
All right.
He's a member of the building committee. We have a
Okay.
vote.
So the other item I just wanted to talk about, as it's a pretty significant issue that we've been dealing with on site, and that's the testing of the windows. And what we have is a couple different issues going on. One is that as the window gets set into its rough opening, there's some sealant that gets put around the perimeter, and that's what we call our primary seal. And then there's windows that either are fixed or operable sections of the window. And so in the testing process, you do an air and water test, and you have a negative, set up a chamber, basically a wood buck around this with plastic, and you basically put in a vacuum on that, trying to suck the water through the system as you spray it evenly over a 15-minute period. If a bead of water gets through, then it's a failed test. And our primary concern was at the primary seal around the perimeter of the window. What's been happening is we were getting some water in, and we couldn't really figure out why. And what it turned out to be is that an incompatibility of the sealant that was being used and the blue skin, or the substance that's put over the wood blocking that the wood windows get screwed into. And so they just weren't really adhering to one another properly. And so we were getting water in there. We're also getting some water in some operable units, but those at least can be repaired or adjusted from the inside. That's more of a manufacturing issue from Gardner. So there's been a number of rounds of additional testing that's been done, and tried a different caulking material. And so now there was some testing done in late December with a different caulking product that was compatible. At least that we were told it was compatible, and it did pass. We want to do some additional testing because we did have a failure on an operable unit. We just wanted to make sure it was coming through the operable unit and not through the primary seal. But we feel pretty good that this issue is going to be behind us pretty soon. The reason this is such a big concern is it's holding up additional trades. The mason can't really work on the exterior skin of the building until the windows issue has been resolved. So A building is where the first of the windows started going in, and the testing started to reveal some issues. And on the C building, they've used this different caulking material. And so we're trying to line up some tests for potentially next week, and then mobilize the masons to work on the C building. They would then go to the B building and then fall back on A once we have an appropriate corrective action on the windows that failed. One of the things that we're looking at, or the contractor is looking at, is spanning that primary seal with either a urethane or a butyl substance, kind of like an ice and water shield that you would put under the roof to really seal that up tight. And then, of course, we would do some additional rounds of testing for that. But that had the potential to have the biggest impact on the project schedule. And I wish I could say it's 100% behind us, but it looks promising that we're going to have that behind us soon. Otherwise, we have a lot of the typical construction issues that, just details and coordination in the field. But wanted to give you an update on the window testing. The other thing we'll talk a little bit about is the unsuitable soils that's been approved in the past, and numbers have come in and shifted slightly, and we really won't pick up those types of things again until the spring. The site contractor has demobilized for the most part, but there's some of the not to exceed costs have come in lower than expected, and some have come in a little bit higher based on volume of materials. But we'll go through that in a couple minutes. Any questions on maybe what's been going on in the field, or status of construction or finances? Okay, then we can jump into the specific PCOs that we want to talk about tonight and get approval on. I think I'm still sharing my screen.
Yep.
Christian, I don't know if you can read that, if you want to maybe go through these items.
Yeah, we have to. So some of these are items that we've discussed previously that have even been approved at a not to exceed value, as Tim mentioned. Some are brand new and some we're still in conversations with Bacon about. But given, again, the time schedule and the nature, we're asking for a not to exceed for tonight. And then JWA and Colliers will keep the conversation going with Bacon and see if we can get some of these a little bit further down. 102 is for some added disconnect switches for $2,201. This was required by some equipment that had already previously been improved, and this seemed like the most efficient way to meet those requirements. 169 is what was originally just a not to exceed value of $35,000 for the utility conflicts in Pearl Street. Matt can probably talk about this one if there's more questions on it, but it came in lower at $8,285. We got a small credit for some floor boxes in the media center. We had included some. And then after discussing with the district and our furniture consultant, we realized that those were not really needed. They were originally kind of planned for if the library had, desktop computers that were stationed there forever for, the card catalog of sorts. And that's not going to be required. So that's a small savings of $1,890. 173 is another not to exceed. This one was approved at a value of 50,000 and came in a little bit higher. Actually came in a little bit higher than this still, and Matt correctly identified some time and materials tracking that was not accurate. So it came down to 55,198. 174 is at the C wing entry. We have a little overhang outside of those front doors. Down by the pre-K admin area. And so we had to change kind of the framing to get the air vapor barrier in the right location. And we also had to add a bit more support to carry that brick lintel all the way across that opening. We do have some pushback on this one, so we're asking for a not to exceed of 9,231. 181 was a request from the fire department. The stores caps are how they access the water suppression system, and they can put a Knox lock on it so that they make sure that no one's tampering with it or putting trash down there or anything of that nature. And so that's a $1,332 change. 182 was a unique condition where we have storefront doors because they have some glass in them. And so the frame is narrower than in our typical doors. And so the corner of the CMU was just more exposed than it has been in other areas. And Lighthouse actually worked with us and recommended grinding the corners down just for mostly for student safety, really, which was a pretty cost-effective and we thought smart idea. So that's for $2,218. 184 is a code requirement and was just something that was missed when we were doing all of those sketches for the C-Wing breakout rooms and comm rooms. We do need to have AV strobes in those hallways. And so that's $1,884. 185B is connected to 185, which was approved at our last meeting. This is for additional insulation at our parapet that goes kind of up and around our wall. And this is to really help reduce the thermal bridging that would occur with those metal studs that continue from our wall straight up above our roof. And so we want to wrap that whole thing with insulation. And so this comes to $8,646. 188 is just for some lengths of pipe between our radiant panels. where the blank cover units couldn't be manufactured that were quite long enough. So to get around that, we were just going to reroute the pipes a little bit, fairly small change of $1,788. 189 is adding a frame for a roof hatch. This is for some angle iron. And this again is one that we're pushing back a little bit on the quantities of materials and labor hours. This is coming in at 5,912. 191 is in the same boat. This is above the media center, up by the third floor, the kind of the lantern above the front door into the building. And so we need a small structural support to connect to that upper roof. And this is coming in at $8,214. 192 is an interesting one. This is a water repellent sealer that we can apply to the exterior concrete flatwork. This is really a question of maintenance and whether it's worth it to try and help prevent some of the damage from the freeze-thaw cycles. This one, again, we're pushing back a little bit on some of the labor quantities, but not much. I think it'll stay, quite close to this ballpark. So it's coming in at $28,878. It won't, it's not a guarantee that you can then salt your sidewalks, by the bucket load all winter long, but it does help and does help with the long-term maintenance of the concrete flatwork.
Christian, if I could, excuse me, if I could just jump in for a second.
Yes, of course.
I did some reading on the literature just to give the committee a little bit more information. First, they recommend that you test this material on the concrete because it says it may take 2 coats. If that's the case, this price almost doubles, number one. It says it protects against the chloride, ions, and salt penetration. And it's staining and things like that. But so that's basically the only advantages that I could read in the literature. And it may, which I could not find, Tim mentioned it, but might have to dig deeper. It could possibly be one of those cases that over time it requires another coat. So, you'd have to consider the fact that if you put it on now and spend this money, but have no plans on recoating down the road because of budgeting issues, will this even be worth it? But I'm just throwing that out there. Thank you.
What's the expected life of that sealer if you do put it on?
That's what I don't know before you'd have to recoat.
Oh,
I'd have to call the manufacturer. It wasn't in the literature I was reading.
We can also come back to this one, or we can also, Matt, do you think this one is time sensitive and that, the only area of concrete that they're pouring right now is at the loading dock? So maybe
I would say no, because let's face the loading dock is going to get all crappy looking anyway in the very beginning. It's never going to look as pristine as a sidewalk will. It's getting driven on and oil dripped on and trash dropped on. So I don't think there's any rush to get it in. Other than I just step back, it does talk about, if I'm not mistaken, putting it on within, let's see, in a certain period of time after it's poured.
Yeah, I do remember that, Matt. I don't think, though, we'll be pouring any sidewalks for a while.
Yeah, no, well, I'm referring to the loading dock. I was thinking it could have been, well, we do it later on in the spring, but I think it has to be somewhat relatively fresh. Here we go. Application test. But yeah, they recommend testing it, allowing 5 to 7 days Drying time 4 to 6 hours. Verify substrate is properly cured. Concrete should obtain 80% of design strength, typically in cheap. All right, so it looks like it can almost be fully cured.
And the reason that
80%.
we're doing, the contractor is pouring the loading dock area is because that's where our transformer is, and we need that completed before National Grid will come in and set their transformer. So that work does have to be done even during the cold months. But the typical sidewalks and other areas, we can, the contractor would hold off until warmer weather.
I know Wayne was
May I ask-
interested in this.
May I ask, is the proposal for all concrete flat work?
Yes.
Yep.
There's like 19,000 square feet of sidewalk and this loading dock apron. But
Moving
excuse
on,
me,
we-
we originally owned a sealer of a different type of product. So my take on this, and I haven't heard back from Bacon when I challenged it, was we should own a good part of that labor to put on a sealer or versus another sealer. You know, they've got outrageous number of hours. I think this thing is super inflated. But we haven't heard back from them. And I just don't think it's, if the number came down, then it might be something to consider. So maybe we could try and push this somehow if we can get an answer and revisit it if, you know.
Well, for the moment, we could put that on hold, I think.
Mhm.
Next,
We can-
Christian.
Yeah, we can come back to this, of course. 193 is adding, this is really the glamour of the project, adding the toilet paper holders to contractor scope. This was something that sometimes is provided by the district, but Wayne and the design team thought that would be more robust and uniform if we actually get some nice stainless steel ones in there. That's $4,463. 195 was another request from the fire department. This is a larger Knox box at the front of the building for more keys, and with the prevalence of fob keys and things of that nature, they just needed a slightly larger one. So that's $1,640. And then 199 is the one that Tim was just talking about, the winter conditions for the loading dock driveway concrete. We typically would not pour that now. There's no need to, but unfortunately we need to in order to get to the transformer location, which is just on the other side. And so this is the cost for pouring in those winter conditions and ground heating and all of those items. Any other specific items we should scroll back up and look at in more detail?
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment? Bob Swartz.
Yes, you may.
Relative to the sealing of the concrete, as far as the committee information, I'm going back to the middle school. There are several sections of flat concrete that have not been treated and are pockmarked because of weather conditions. So whatever that's worth, I share that with you.
Thanks
Thanks,
to
Bob.
the miracle of technology, I did text Eric Bernardin while the conversation was going on, our civil engineer, and he is more familiar with the sealer than we are. He recommended a recoat in 3 to 5 years, so we've got quite a while. And he said, but the total area won't be necessary, just the high traffic areas. So it should be a much smaller cost.
Would it make sense only to include in this change order the loading dock area and defer to a later conversation the rest of the flat concrete?
We certainly could, Bob, and also as Matt said, we can see how this price comes down whether it does or not, and that might impact your kind of outlook on it.
The weather forecast isn't good for the next, week or so. So they're not going to be pouring the concrete anyway. I mean, in the meantime, I could pressure them to get answers to the questions we had. If they want to get it poured and they need to have this material a certain period of time after it was poured, it behooves them to get this behind them and answer the questions so we can evaluate it.
Gentlemen, you may have mentioned it, but where was the genesis of this repellent sealer coming from? Did someone suggest it, or?
Well, Wayne was in the conversation for sure.
Yeah, Wayne was definitely in the conversation. So this is an interesting case where, I don't know, maybe I've been colored a little bit. I talked to Eric Bernardin quite a bit about this, and I think that Bacon and their concrete provider have run into this issue before in a litigious way where concrete didn't last very long, and folks have gone after them. And so I think maybe more than on other projects, they submitted a letter that said, warning, our concrete flat work is not under warranty if there's any ice nearby. And so that raised the red flags. And so in talking to Eric about this, he feels like if the concrete is poured in a very careful manner and people are cognizant of, a variety of conditions, then maybe this would not be needed. But as a belt and suspenders, this is kind of a nice product to add onto it. So that's from his position. And I think as soon as we got that letter from Bacon that they would not warranty the flat work, that's where a lot of this conversation started.
Are they going to warranty the flat work if we approve it?
It's still not warranted for salt application. I don't think there's any, it's impossible to make a bulletproof, salt-proof concrete sidewalk. So no, that won't change. But again, this is just something to try and help.
Last time, what was, I can't quite see it. Was it 10,000, 20,000? What was the number? It's just off the screen.
28.
28.
To be honest with you, I seriously doubt that we'll be doing this again in 5 to 7 years, or whatever the recommendation was. Just knowing governmental maintenance.
Did we not also go to a higher PSI concrete to try to help this situation?
Exactly, Bob. Yep, these are very much related.
I have to say, I've never seen concrete in modern days that will withstand salt, whether it's coated or not.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking salt, we're talking, the technologically advanced products that are out there.
Yeah,
Salt-like, they're even just as dangerous or problematic.
I'm pretty sure that the city in Wayne uses a more environmental friendly ice melter, if that's what we'll call it.
Yeah, it's a green salt.
They do, yeah.
In fact, the bigger issue
all
here is
have
that
fluoride.
it's new concrete.
Yep. Yeah.
It's new concrete. That's the big issue right now. It's still in its curing process, and it's more susceptible to any kind of actions than if it was 3 or 4 years old. So
Do you think it's a good idea? Matt, do you think it's a good idea if we do the loading dock area, then right in front of the school, and then the outer sidewalks we don't?
I mean, I put it this way, the loading dock is pretty good size, and is it really important how that looks? like I say, it's gonna get all gunked up in a year from, everything else spilling on there and staining it. If it got a little pock mark, then you could save some. I don't know, I'd have to figure out the area on the loading dock to see if, if it's $1,000, it's worth $1,000. But
Well, and again, I think we do have sealer in the base contract. This was a enhanced product. So I think we should do some research on this. And if we think it's something that we need to do, we will have time to meet again by the time they pour it, and they have to wait 28 days for it to cure the concrete before they can put any sealer on it. I think we have some time.
I'll buy that.
Okay.
Christian, this and Tim, this would be change order number 12. What's the amount that you're recommending that they approve?
So if
So
we,
without the concrete, it's unless in case my math is incorrect, I think it's 123,058.46.
exactly, I get the same.
Do I hear a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Thank you, and thank you for the second.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing no discussion on the motion. Let's put the matter to a roll call vote.
Mark Pellegrino,
Yes.
Robert Hankinson,
Yes.
Jennifer Plavin,
Yes.
Mark Hawk. Mark Hawk, is he still with us? Yep.
Yes.
And Bob Schwartz, I see you're here. Bob Schwartz,
Yes.
we have a vote.
Excellent. All right. That's the updates of change orders. Any updates from the architects? Christian?
No, none to report.
Okay. So no old business, new business is, or any other business to go before the subcommittee. No public comment today. I don't think Mr. Rockwood's on with us today. So hearing none, the next meeting is on February 2nd, 2022. No need for executive session. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Excellent.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Nays? Ayes have it. Very good. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a good
Take care.
night.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
night,
Very
everyone.
much, everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you.